Today we're going to be going over 7 fantastic blue fragrance clones that are great alternatives to the much more expensive original. Blue fragrances need no introduction. I think we can all agree. If you're new to fragrances, a blue scent is basically a scent that's utilizing a lot of ambroxan. Okay, and if you don't know what ambroxan is, there's plenty of videos on that and ways to describe it. And if you are new, you'll see a trend throughout this video and you'll kind of start to figure it out. And once you smell some of these, you'll also catch on pretty quickly. But most of you guys watching are fully aware of what it is, so I'm not going to spend that much time on it. One thing that generally is kind of a commonality when it comes to blue fragrances is a bit more expensive. Not always. There are plenty of cheaper designer blue scents out there, but there are also a lot of very expensive ones, just like anything. So this video is kind of focused on that, giving you cheap alternatives to expensive blue scents, both designer and niche. Now this first one that we're going to start off with is Lattafa Fakhar. This is a clone of YSL Eau de Parfum. And real quick before we move forward, I will link all of these down below so you can pick these up at discounters for the prices that I referenced throughout the video. Fakhar is usually going to be anywhere from $20 to $30. Most of these in here are going to be $40 or less, with the exception of maybe one creeping up above that. But I think for the most part, we're in line with that price range there. And so what is YSL Eau de Parfum? What does it smell like? Well, it's a blue scent, so utilizing a lot of, in this case, amber wood, but it gives off like an ambroxan, fizzy, slightly bright, fresh, somewhat watery type of smell. And then you're getting a lot of apple, a lot of sage, geranium, lavender, aromatics. So it's aromatic, blue, with a bit of a fruity sweetness from the apple. YSL EDP is very popular. It pretty quickly rose to the top. I mean, when you look at all of the best-selling, websites, Macy's, Ulta, Sephora, FragranceNet, Joma Shop, and so on, and you sort by bestsellers, Eau de Parfum is going to be on that first page on most of those websites. So it is by far a very, very popular scent. And it's usually around $90 to $100 at discounters, maybe sometimes a bit less. Retail price, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's more than that. And again, you can get this one anywhere from $20 to $30. So that leaves a pretty good chunk of change on the table that you could pocket and buy other fragrances with, or save it and use it responsibly, So that's the power of clones. And while people may say that, oh, just buy the real thing, that's just not your call to make when it comes to other people's, purchasing abilities. So if you want to smell like Eau de Parfum for a fraction of the cost, check out Lattafa Fakhar. This next one is Haramain Amber Oud Blue Edition. So this is one that I was kind of wavering on as far as price point because it's kind of all over the board sometimes. So sometimes I think I've seen it just right there hanging out at that $40, $50 line, and sometimes maybe a bit less. It just depends on where you're shopping, but still much more affordable, less than half the cost of Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum, which is what this smells like. It's got grapefruit, lemon, vetiver, sandalwood, and pretty similar in terms of notes compared to Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum. Now, I don't have incense written down, and I can't remember off the top of my head if on the note breakdown for this one, if that is an inclusion or not. It definitely gives you the impression, although it could just be because you're comparing it to Bleu de Chanel because it smells like it, so then you artificially pick up on a note that maybe isn't there. I don't know, right? When I smell this one, it for sure has that grapefruit, bright freshness, and the woodiness that Bleu de Chanel has. Maybe doesn't quite have that smokiness, at least not to the same level of Bleu de Chanel, but to be compared, Bleu de Chanel isn't a smoke bomb either. Still predominantly fresh and bright, citrusy, and woody. But I digress. They're still very, very close in terms of similarities as far as the scent is concerned. Now, quality-wise, this one's really good. Haramain, they're a premier clone brand in my opinion. They've got a lot of great quality offerings. Can you tell a difference side by side when you're comparing quality? Of course you can. Now, I'm not saying the Chanel is just niche level and the best of the best, but there is a difference, not major, but you can perceive it. And for most people, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference, right? People walking down the street saying, hey, you smell good, nobody's gonna know. But when you start diving in and really getting into this hobby and smelling a lot of things, maybe you can tell a little bit of a difference. But as far as just generally what the use case of this one is a everyday wear, compliment pulling, versatile scent. It's still going to do that, and you know, most people aren't going to be worried about those differences in quality. And you really have to ask yourself, would you want to pay over $100 more to get that Chanel name brand and better quality? That's going to be up to you. That's your decision to make. But as far as saving some money and getting a product that smells really, really close, Blue Edition is a great one to go for. Really, really nice clone. Now this next one's cheap, like cheap. I believe 20 bucks usually is where it is. It's Armaf Hunter Intense Eau de Parfum. One way or another, somewhere along the line, they kind of sneakily, is that a word? They under the radar, so to speak, changed the concentration. So it used to be an eau de toilette. When you go on FragranceNet or whatever it was and you'd buy it, it would be 20 bucks for a 100 ml EDT. Then they created a new listing and had it as an eau de parfum and slowly phased out that EDT listing, and now it's just eau de parfum for about 20 bucks. And on the bottle it says, I was kind of pointing to it, you probably can't see it, it says eau de parfum. It used to say eau de toilette. So they changed that. The price pretty much remained the same. As far as scent compared to the EDP and EDT, the difference between the scents, it's pretty much no difference at all. So that begs the question, what is this a clone of? It's a great question. And the way I describe it is, yes, you know, what is it a clone of? A little bit of everything. Bleu de Chanel, maybe a little. A lot of Sauvage, EDT. A bit of Invictus Aqua, okay, that old style Invictus Aqua. Maybe a little bit of a Dylan Blue type of smell, okay? So you're getting just a bunch of things. Aquatic smell, a little bit from Invictus Aqua. A lot of peppery, spicy, sharp ambroxan from Sauvage EDT. A slight bit of a sweetness from Dylan Blue, okay? You kind of see where I'm going with this one here. It just, it's got all that going on. And even some of the sweetness from Invictus Aqua as well. And it's especially apparent when you spray this one off the opening. Smelling it just based off the dry down, like picking it up and smelling it off the cap, less of that Invictus Aqua smell. When you atomize this one, you pick up on it big time. So it's not quite as cut and dry as the first two that we cover where, oh, it's a Y clone or, oh, it's a Bleu de Chanel clone. This one kind of lumps a few different things together. The beauty of that and why I love that so much is because it's $20. You know, tally up the total if you were to buy all of those that I just mentioned. You know, I can't even remember what all I listed off. It'd be over $200 to get to that point. This is $20 for all of those combined. One could say it kind of takes the best from each of those fragrances and then, you know, combines everything into one. It's a good way to look at it. But ultimately, big difference in price. Even the cheapest of that bunch, Dylan Blue, is still 40 bucks. This is 20. So it's just, I really like it for that reason. It's a great compliment getter. And as I mentioned, for a scent of this low of price, man, it does not smell cheap. It does not smell harsh or overly synthetic or rough. It's impressively good for the price. Now, I wouldn't be praising the quality if it was a $50 or $60 scent, but at this cheapy price, man, I can't really complain about anything with it. It's even got great performance. Okay, now this next one's going to be back on track as far as just keeping it real simple, you know. And again, this video is all about blue fragrances, right? And so you're getting options here. It's Dunhill, or no, I'm sorry, not Dunhill Icon, Antonio Banderas, the Icon. Dunhill Icon, you know, they came out first years and years ago, and so whenever I think of Icon, I think of that. No, completely different. Antonio Banderas, the Icon, EDT, the first of the line. This smells just about identical to Dior Sauvage Eau de Toilette. So I know we just talked about that whole Sauvage, everything going on there. This is Sauvage and that's it. Doesn't really smell like Invictus Aqua or Dylan Blue. Doesn't have any of that sweetness, nothing like that. Okay, it's a peppery ambroxan and that lavender, and that's basically it with this one. Except this is also about $20. Dior Sauvage EDT. At this point, on discounters, you're usually looking at, I don't know, 80 to 90, maybe $100. It just varies wildly depending on where you're shopping and so on. But factor in somewhere around $100 basically versus about 20 for this one. And at this point, they've come out with a few different flankers, and of the ones I've tried, They've all been great. Now, they're not all Sauvage clones, but they all have been really good. So I think given the low price of this lineup, they're really good scents. And you might be wondering, you know, is Sauvage EDT still worth wearing, still worth smelling like in 2025? I see no reason not to. You know, people are always going to have that argument of too many people wear it, it smells played out. Are there other options that might be considered better? While it's subjective, of course, I would say more than likely yes, right? It's just, very little of this hobby is factual, right? It's solely based off of personal preference and what you like. So all I can do is just provide you with the info and you have to make that choice yourself. But if you want a cheap version of Sauvage, I mean, this would be a great gift, great for, you know, a younger guy, son, you know, nephew, whatever, who's in high school or, you know, junior high, and you don't want to give him a $100 bottle of cologne that could get broken or used up in a month if he's spraying on 100 sprays, right? Something like this, man, it's perfect. All right, this next one, Ellis Aqua Extreme. You guessed it. Kind of smells a lot like Versace Dylan Blue. And you might wonder, Dylan Blue's 40 bucks, this one's 20. Just buy Dylan Blue, right? And again, you know, that's completely up to whoever's pulling the trigger and putting in their card information and making the purchase, you know. I will say it smells a lot like Dylan Blue, but it's not quite as cut and dry either. Heavily inspired by Dylan Blue, but with their own twist. Not necessarily a twist of combining in Sauvage or combining in Bleu de Chanel or any other blue scent. More so just has a little bit of that Dylan Blue sweetness, but more of a focus on freshness here. I kind of look at it as a fresher Dylan Blue, right? Sounds crazy, but that's really what I look at it as, because Dylan Blue has some of the grapefruit, has the ambroxan, but then it also has that incense and patchouli, which really adds to that heaviness of it. You know, I mean, if you've smelled Dylan Blue, which a lot of you have, it's actually pretty sweet sometimes, you know, especially when you're heating up and you're wearing it out when it's warm outside, that stuff can get pretty sweet. This one's just fresher, easy way to put it. So even if you already have Dylan Blue, you're in love with it, it's one of your favorites, but sometimes it's too much, man, just get this one for 20 bucks or somewhere around there. It's just a little bit fresher, maybe better for those hot summer days. Okay, this next one, Nuit Lyric by Armaf. Watery notes, bergamot, orange, rosemary. Maybe the notes don't tell you a ton because that note breakdown is probably pretty common, but it smells a lot like Aqua de Jo Profondo. And I love Profondo. It's a favorite of mine. It's usually around $100, $110, $120 maybe. And so this one, 20 to 30. And Profondo, the reason why I like it is because it has that orange, mineral notes type of smell. It's a different take on a very common aquatic DNA. So it doesn't really smell like everything else that you're used to smelling within that category. And this one essentially mirrors that. It gets really, really close, just of course at a fraction of the cost. Most of you know Profondo. If you want a cheaper alternative, this is one that you can check out. And last up for this video, we have Fragrance World Imperium. Take one look at that bottle and you see what they're after here. It's an Elysium Parfum Cologne clone, and it's nearly spot on. You know, the thing that makes Elysium for me is the type of vetiver used in there. It's strong on the vetiver, mixed with all the citruses and fruits, of course, with some of that ambroxan, ambergris further on down the line. But when you open it up, it's citruses, fruits, and vetiver. And that's what this one has too. It's not like, it's kind of a combination of a little bit of a soapy vetiver with a tiny bit of an earthiness too. Really, it's a nice textured vetiver with a bit of bite to it. It's what makes this scent stand out so much in my opinion. Of course, Elysium is usually around $200, maybe $220 online. This one is about $20 to $25. No surprise there, big savings. I mean, think of all the other scents you could get with that savings, right? Or just, you know, not having to spend that money at all. So really good alternative if you want to smell like Elysium without spending a whole bunch of money. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. Some great blue fragrance clones that just smell really close to the original without spending a ton of money. Like I said, I'll link these down below, but that's gonna do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.